Hi everyone, welcome to the class. In our previous class, we were discussing with the concept of proteins and we completed all the structural levels of proteins, that is primary structure, secondary, tertiary and quaternary structure of proteins. And we have seen the classification of proteins as fibrous and globular proteins. Now, in the present class, we'll continue with the concept. So we learn what is a denaturation of protein. Then, so we'll go with the concept of enzymes, followed by micronutrient, that is vitamins concept we'll try to complete in the present class. Now, denaturation is a very important phenomenon we need to know along with the concept of proteins. So, denaturation of proteins. So, now what is meant by denaturation? So, we'll try to understand now. So we know that a protein will have a complex structural level. So with various attractive forces, the structure of the protein is held. So hence, so if we take any protein in the biological system, so it is having a proper structural level or with unique three-dimensional network. So the structure is present for a protein. So if we take any biological system, so the protein present in the biological system will have a unique three-dimensional structure. Or in the case of proteins having more than one polypeptide chain, we are going to see that so those particular polypeptide chains with their three-dimensional structure so will form a quaternary state, so as a functional protein that is referred to as its three-dimensional structural view. Now, in the three-dimensional structure of a protein, to give the structural rigidity, there are various forces which are stabilizing the structure. There will be various forces so which will stabilize the structure of protein. Now, if any particular factors, if they destabilize the structure, the three-dimensional structure of the protein will lose its structural rigidity. That is the coiled state of the protein. So will undergo uncoiling. So as a result of its uncoiling, the unfold of the respective polypeptide chain, so will loses the respective activity of a protein. So hence, whatever the protein with this unique three-dimensional structure, so with a proper structural respective aspects, so is referred to as a native protein, so which is considered as a functional protein. So native protein, or it is also called as a functional protein. Whatever the specific function of a protein, storage, transport, whatever it is, so it is to exhibit the protein has to be stabilized through its structure. If somehow its stability is lost, then the protein will lose its biological activity. So that is termed as our concept of denaturation. Hence, denaturation can be considered as the process by which it is a process by which protein loses its biological activity. So whatever the respective activity, so responsible for a particular protein in the living system, so that biological activity will be lost during the process, and such a process is called as denaturation. Hence, the process by which protein loses its biological activity is called as denaturation. Now, how the respective process will causes the loss of biological activity of protein. So we are having such substances as denaturating agent. So denaturation may be caused due to two aspects. So either due to a physical change or due to chemical change. The protein denaturation can be of any of these two aspects. Either a physical change may cause the damage of protein, thereby its biological activity will be lost, or any chemical change may lead to the denaturation of protein. Now, physical change refers to, just an example, change in temperature. Change in temperature can be taken as one of the physical change. Chemical change will try to consider change in pH. It is presence of certain acid or a base, whatever it is, which is causing the pH of the system to change. So if such changes, either due to physical factors or due to chemical factors, will causes the protein to loses its biological activity, and such a process is called as denaturation. Now, the native protein is functional protein. As a result of denaturation, the protein function will be lost. Hence, so it is a denatured protein, and these chemical substance or the physical change responsible factors are called as denaturating agents. So these denaturating agents will be responsible for the loss of the biological activity. The main forces which will destabilize during the denaturation is that the hydrogen bonds. Has hydrogen bonds in the secondary structure and tertiary structure of protein, which are very essential forces for holding the protein in its native form. So these hydrogen bonds will be disturbed. So either due to physical change or due to chemical change, such as change in pH. Now, if we take, so due to the respective hydrogen bond information, we can recall which structural level of protein is affected by denaturation. So if we take the primary structure, secondary structure, and tertiary as the main important structural level of protein, so the protein with more than one polypeptide chain will have quaternary. Hence, we'll not discuss that quaternary. We'll take in general the main three levels: primary, secondary, and tertiary. So secondary and tertiary level of protein structure is held by hydrogen bonds. Hence, denaturation affects this particular level. So that means denaturation affects the secondary and tertiary structure of proteins. So which particular structural level of protein remains intact during denaturation if it is related? So it is the primary structure. So primary structure does not affect by denaturation. So hence the protein polypeptide chain is remain intact. That means peptide bonds are not disturbed. So due to denaturation, whereas the other two structural levels, secondary and tertiary, the main force being hydrogen bond giving the stability for this, or in the case of tertiary, the van der Waals forces or electrostatic forces of interaction. All these will destabilize during denaturation. Hence, the structural level aspect, if it is related, may be a very important one mark question here. So the structural level of protein which remains intact is primary, and during denaturation, secondary and tertiary structure will lost, or denaturation affects the secondary and tertiary structure, whereas the primary structure remain intact or does not affected by denaturation. If we take certain examples to understand this process, you can assume if you take the egg and if you make the egg to a boiled condition, so there the protein present in the egg, the albumin, so will undergo egg albumin or ovalbumin if it is taken. So that protein gets coagulates or precipitates. That coagulation of egg protein can be taken as an example of denaturation. It is coagulation of egg. So the protein in egg you can consider it is ovalbumin or albumin. So there is one interesting information here. If you are curious enough, you can relate that in an easier way. If you take the egg and after boiling, whatever the water present in the egg will be lost. So if you take any egg, after boiling, the water present in the egg will be not seen. What happens to it if you take whatever the hydrogen bonds, so which are giving the stability for the egg protein, ovalbumin or albumin, so that hydrogen bonds to clean the water present in the egg will be utilized. As a result of that, so water in the egg will be lost after boiling, so can be related with denaturation phenomenon. So one more important example, everyone knows that the protein present in the milk is casein. The milk protein is casein. So one of the bacteria, lactobacilli, so if it considers the causes of lactic acid production in the process of milk during curdling, so in the formation of curd, that lactic acid will causes a change in pH. As a result of change in pH, the milk protein gets coagulates. So that can also be taken as one more important example, that is curdling of milk. The process of obtaining the curd from milk. So there the protein present in the milk is casein. So that casein protein will undergo change in pH. So your ovalbumin of egg is caused due to change in temperature. A physical change you can consider. Temperature change is causing the denaturation of protein. Here casein to undergo a chemical change. So change in pH is responsible. That pH is due to lactic acid production. So this is how in simple we can able to understand the denaturation phenomenon. So denaturation is a process of losing the biological activity of a protein. So either it may be due to a physical change or it may be due to a chemical change. Example of physical change, change in temperature. Example of chemical change, you can consider change in pH. The same will take with two simple examples to understand. If you take coagulation of egg, the egg protein ovalbumin during the heating, so the protein gets coagulate as a result of change in temperature. Heating or boiling will make the temperature to change. So curdling of milk. So milk, when it is converted into curd, the protein present in the milk casein gets precipitated as a result of change in pH. As a result, so you are going to see that so milk is becoming converted into curd. So here the action of the lactobacilli, so where you are going to see the production of lactic acid, so is responsible for change in pH. In any of these kind of denaturation phenomenon, if you take the protein structural level, if you observe, the primary structure remains intact. So that means it does not affect. Whereas the secondary and tertiary structure will be affected by the denaturation process. So this is in simple what is a denaturation process is. So we know that so all the proteins are present in the biological system. So they require the optimum conditions. Hence the main aspect for a protein to functional is optimum temperature and optimum pH. So proteins work under only optimal condition. Our body provides that optimal condition. As a result, the proteins are functional in us. So proteins to get functional, so the optimum temperature and optimum pH is responsible for its activity to exhibit. So that's all the simple information of denaturation. So now a continuation of protein will try to continue with one more biomolecule called as enzymes. The next important biomolecule, enzymes. So all enzymes are proteins. All enzymes are proteinaceous in nature. So hence, whatever the information we learned under the structural level of proteins are responsible to understand the concept of enzymes. All enzymes are proteins except a class of enzymes, ribozymes. So will be an additional information. So ribosomes, where RNA, ribose nucleic acid, acts as enzyme. Except in this, where the nucleic acid acts as enzyme, in remaining all the cases, the proteins will perform the role of enzymes. So are all proteins so considered as enzymes there? with respect to that biocatalytical role. Now, if we relate what are enzymes exactly, so if we take any living system, if you take any living process, so it consists of biochemical pathways. So without that, so no particular product, that means in the form of the molecule, is not synthesized in our body or cannot be degraded in our body. So it involves a coordination of varieties of biochemical processes. So if we take in any living system, all the biochemical processes, so that is either synthesis of any particular compound or degradation of any particular compound, synthesis or degradation. So we can consider all these biochemical processes together as metabolism of the respective components. So if we take anything, so with respect to a biochemical process, so each and every chemical process in the living system is catalyzed. That means, so they are catalyzed by chemical substances, and those chemical substances are enzymes. Hence, so enzymes are defined as biochemical catalysts, or in simple, they are biocatalysts. So enzymes or biocatalysts. So what are biocatalysts? So it means that they catalyze the reactions taking place in the living system. So simple example being, you can recall, so process of digestion. So it's a very complicated mechanism how it takes place. So digestion starts in mouth, where the enzyme present in saliva, salivary amylase, so will act on the starch or glycogen present in the food and will break down into a smaller components. So they are the action of the first enzyme you can think. Then the digestive enzymes present you can relate in the stomach, the small intestine, so which are secreted from pancreas and all. So you can relate all those informations. So all are biocatalysts. So without enzyme, no chemical change in terms of biochemical process so takes place within us. Each and every process is related on enzymes, so that you can relate what is the importance of enzymes in us. So without enzymes, no chemical change takes place within us. So such an important role we are going to relate for the enzymes. Just to mention the proteins as a significant concept, the enzyme concept is mentioned here. So in detail, you have learned in the subject biology. So the detailed classification of enzymes you learned in the first PUC itself. You can recall all those classifications, will be helpful for your competitive exams in chemistry also. So if we take simple examples, already we mentioned in the disaccharides. So examples of any enzyme you can take. So you can take the disaccharides. If you take, for example, maltose. So maltose is C12H22O11. So if this particular disaccharide, if it is acted by the enzyme maltase, so it will give two monosaccharide units as glucose units. So maltose produces glucose by the action of the enzyme maltase. So similarly, you can take sucrose is acted by the enzyme invertase to produce glucose and fructose. So lactose is hydrolyzed by the enzyme lactase to galactose and glucose. Starch is hydrolyzed by the salivary amylase, and all the glycolytic pathways you can just imagine how glucose in a 10 steps in EMP pathway or so the glycolytic pathway yields pyruvic acid. Then pyruvic acid in the TCA cycle, how you are going to get the respective coenzymes and all. So all those concepts we can relate. So finally, in the oxidative phosphorylation, how it is producing the ATP. All respective reactions, so they are all catalyzed. So without the enzyme needed for a particular process, so that process cannot take place within us. So such an important protein is our enzyme. So all enzymes are proteinaceous in its nature. Now, if we take, so all the structural levels are related for proteins. So we can assume that, so again, enzymes work under optimal condition. So enzymes work only under optimal conditions. Whatever the protein structure is there, so you can recall that. So enzymes will work at optimum temperature and optimum pH condition. Any change occurs to that, so it will loses its biological activity and enzymes will be no more functional. So we have few more related concepts of enzymes. So in detail about that, so we are learning in the unit 5 surface chemistry, as well as in the last unit chemistry in everyday life. So what is the action of enzyme and all we are going to learn. So enzymes as target sites for the drugs we are going to understand there, and the mechanism of enzyme action and all we are going to learn in the unit 5. So it is under surface chemistry unit, we'll try to discuss that. So this is in brief. So what are enzymes with respect to a biochemical catalyst? Now we'll understand one more important organic compounds. So it is vitamins. Now there are certain organic compounds which are required in our diet, so with a very small quantity. But without that small quantity which are needed for our particular growth and maintenance, so will lead to a diseased conditions. So are responsible for specific diseases if you are not getting that in our diet. Such micronutrients we are going to consider as vitamins, so which are derived from the word vitamin. So vital amine. So as the initially discovered vitamins as amino compounds, so the name vital amine is taken to give vitamin name. So later in the vitamin, the ending letter is replaced and so it is removed, and the word vitamin is considered. So we'll try to understand such an important vitamins. So what are those and what are the classification of vitamins under our syllabus? Now, if we consider vitamins, so if we take a simple definition for that. Now, whatever the vitamins if you take, so they are required in small quantities regularly through the diet. We need to have a supplement of vitamins. So without that, we are going to have a diseases. The deficiency of the vitamin will lead to a diseases. We have the classification with a simple source of a respective vitamin and the disease caused due to its deficiency. We'll try to understand it. So if we take the vitamins, so vitamins are the organic compounds. If we take any vitamins, all the vitamins are organic compounds. There are certain vitamins so which will act as coenzymes. So you can recall the nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide or flavin adenine dinucleotide and all. So it is NAD and all. So all these are will act as coenzymes. So to complete the activity of enzymes, those are vitamin substances. We'll try to understand it. So vitamins are the organic compounds required in the diet in small quantities. Why they require is to perform specific biological functions within us. And due to that specific biological functions, the normal maintenance and the growth of the individual takes place. Now this is in simple what are vitamins is. So if we take vitamins, so vitamins are the organic compounds. All the vitamins are organic compounds, that is carbon containing compounds, and they are regularly required in the diet. So in small quantities they require. It is to perform specific biological functions which are crucial for the normal growth and health of organisms. Hence, vitamins are the organic compounds which are required in the diet in small quantities to perform a specific biological functions for the normal growth and health of the organisms. So the word vitamin is derived from the word vitamin, so where the initially synthesized vitamins are amino compounds. As they are amino compounds, so the word is taken as a vital amine. So vital refers to crucial or needed. Because of that vital amine nature, so the vitamin word is taken. Later the ending letter E is removed to give vitamin as the respective biomolecule. Now we'll try to understand, so what are the different classifications of vitamins and few significant role related to their classification, and we'll learn in detail what are the sources and deficiencies of such vitamins. So it is the most important 1 mark expected topic from the unit. So try to concentrate that. So we have a small reasoning informations and all, so that we'll try to relate now. So we'll observe a simple classification of vitamins. So vitamins are classified based on their solubility in the living system. So those vitamins which are soluble in water are called as water soluble vitamins. The vitamins which are soluble in water, so they are called as water soluble vitamins. And the vitamins which are soluble in fats, so they are called as fat soluble vitamins. It is water soluble vitamins and the fat soluble vitamins are the two classification. As the name indicates, the vitamins which are soluble in water are called as water soluble vitamins. The vitamins which are soluble in fat are called as fat soluble vitamins. So we have important examples. So there are more examples under the B complex vitamins. So as per the syllabus, we have 4 vitamins of B mentioned to learn. So we'll try to learn all those. So water soluble vitamins, so are vitamin B complex. So it is having more number of vitamins. We'll try to concentrate vitamin B1, vitamin B2, vitamin B6, vitamin B12. So not only these 4, there are many vitamins under the B complex. So you concentrate as per the syllabus B1, B2, B6, B12 as vitamin B complex, so as water soluble vitamins. And you can concentrate one more vitamin, it is vitamin C. So everyone knows the information. So in brief at least, so you can recall all such informations will relate here in a proper classification criteria. So water soluble vitamins, vitamin B and vitamin C. Vitamin B, so we are learning B1, B2, B6 and B12. So with respect to fat soluble vitamins, so we have 4 vitamins. So it is vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E and vitamin K. So it is vitamin A, D, E, K, and here it is a vitamin B and vitamin C. Now these are the vitamins, so which are water soluble and fat soluble vitamins we need to learn. Now the vitamins which are soluble in water, they are water soluble, it is B and C. And the vitamins which are soluble in fat are A, D, E, and K. Now, if we observe few more informations related to this, so among these water soluble and fat soluble, which are needed regularly in the diet and why? So if we concentrate all such reasons, so with few simple information points, we'll try to understand. So water soluble vitamins, so we require regularly in the diet. So water soluble vitamins, if we take, so they are needed regularly in our diet. So what is the reason for this? If we concentrate, so as these vitamins are soluble in water, so they pass through the filtration barrier. So they filtered and they pass through the filtration barrier and they get excreted in the urine. So as a result, so these vitamins cannot be stored in our body. So that is the reason why we need to take water soluble vitamins regularly through our diet. Hope the information is clear. So why we need the water soluble vitamins regularly in the diet is that, so water soluble vitamins, as they are soluble in water, they pass through the filtration barrier and excreted in urine. As a result, so they are excreted in urine. So we need to take regularly the water soluble vitamins in our food. So without that, the symptoms of the deficiency of water soluble vitamins we are going to feel in our daily life. We'll try to observe what are those symptoms and all. So I think everyone in one way or in the other way, so they would have come across the symptoms. So that we'll try to understand and will relate to our daily life. So hence, water soluble vitamins are needed to take regularly in our diet. The reason is that as they being soluble in water, so they pass through the filtration barrier, so and they get excreted in urine. So there is one exceptional case in the vitamin B, so which is not regularly needed in our diet. So there is one a very important exception, so that we'll try to consider, except a class of vitamin, that is vitamin B12. So vitamin B12, so if we take all this, it is B1, B2, B6 and vitamin C. All these vitamins cannot be stored in our body. So if we take B1, B2, B6 and C, so they are not stored in our body. So we cannot store. So there is one exception for this, so which is vitamin B12. So vitamin B12 is the only water soluble vitamin, so which is stored in our body. So the reason why B1, B2, B6 and vitamin C cannot be stored in our body, as they are water soluble, they get excreted in urine, but except vitamin B12. So what is the reason for this? If you relate, so vitamin B12, so which is chemically known as cyanocobalamin, so it is involved in the synthesis of red blood cells. So it is involved in the synthesis of red blood cells, that is RBC. As this particular vitamin is involved in the formation of RBCs, so it is stored in our body. So this is the reason why vitamin B12 is stored in our body. Will be a very important 1 mark question. For 2 mark, you can expect it as a reasoning question. So an exception in the water soluble vitamins. So vitamin B12 is the only vitamin under water soluble vitamin, so which is stored in our body because it is involved in the synthesis of RBC. As it is participated in the synthesis of RBC, so it is going to store in our body. Hope the information is clear. So that is what you need to understand very clearly. So with the information. So now we'll try to learn with respect to the fat soluble vitamins. Now, if you take any fat soluble vitamins, so as they are stored in fat storing sites, so where the fat is going to deposit in our body, fat storing site or fat depositing site in the living system, that is liver and adipose tissue. So where these vitamins are stored, if it is asked, so these are stored in the fat storing site, that is liver or adipose tissues. As this is going to be stored in these fat storing sites, so these vitamins cannot be needed or is not needed to take regularly in the diet. So fat soluble vitamins are not needed to take regularly in the diet. So why they are not needed regularly in the diet is because they are stored in fat depositing sites or fat storing sites, that is liver and adipose tissue. As a result, they are stored. So whenever the need is there for the respective vitamin, so we are going to utilize from the stored site. So hence, they are not needed as water soluble vitamins to supply regularly in the diet. So even the deficiencies of this vitamin is causing diseased conditions. All those we'll try to discuss in detail. So this is in brief. So what is the classification of vitamins? So to brief, so water soluble vitamins and fat soluble vitamins, as they are soluble in water, as they are soluble in fat. So we have the main classification. As water soluble vitamins cannot be stored in our body, they need to be taken regularly in the diet. Whereas the fat soluble vitamins, as they are stored in the fat storing site, so they are not required to supply regularly in the diet. Such vitamins are vitamin B complex and vitamin C belongs to water soluble. Vitamin A, D, E, K is fat soluble. So there is one class of vitamin B12 in the water soluble where, as though it is water soluble, is stored in our body. So because of its involvement in the RBC blood cell synthesis, it is going to be stored in our body. Remaining all the vitamins are regularly excreted through urine. Hence we need to have in our regular diet the vitamin B and vitamin C containing food substances. So this is in detail. Now we'll try to learn individual vitamins, what are the sources of that and what is the deficiency caused from the respective vitamins. Now we'll start first with the fat soluble vitamins. So as we know, the fat soluble vitamins are A, D, E and K. So here the chemical names of the vitamins, few they have given in the syllabus, few they have not given. So as competitive exam point of view, so we'll try to remember all the chemical names. So I'm going to write it in the table. So I have made a simple table to remember name of the vitamin, source of that and the deficiency. So each information here is 1 mark important point of view. So we need to learn as understanding point of view. So you try to think, so one or the other symptom you have familiarized in your daily situations. So we'll try to start with vitamin A. So vitamin A is chemically respective chemical substance which is responsible for this is an alcoholic aldehyde as well as the carboxylic acid substance, and the chemical name of this is retinol, or in the aldehydic form AL, retinol, or retinoic acid is the chemical name of this particular vitamin. So this vitamin A is rich in any fish liver oil if we take. So vitamin A is rich in it, and carrots, so that is carotenoids, are the rich source of vitamin A. Butter and milk are the sources of vitamin A. Anything you can remember. So the fish liver oil or cod liver oil, so are the important sources. So the seafoods what we are going to consider, the oil extracted from the fish liver or cod liver, so is the richest source of vitamin A. So whatever the vitamin A supplement tablets will come, that is generally from the extracted fish liver oil or cod liver oil. So then if you consider the deficiency of this vitamin A, so is called as xerothalmia. It is XEROTHTHALMIA. It is xerothalmia. So xerothalmia refers to a medical condition of deficiency where the cornea of the eye gets hardened. As a result of that, there will be a problem in the vision. So due to the deficiency of vitamin A, the cornea of the eye gets hardened, and that hardening of cornea of eye is indicated by a medical condition called xerothalmia. So that xerothalmia is one of the important deficiency of vitamin A. And another one is night blindness. So you would have heard about this night blindness in your lower classes, so that you can easily remember. But give importance for this xerothalmia deficiency condition to remember here. So what is xerothalmia if it is asked? So you should be able to answer that. So the cornea of the eye gets hardened. That condition of medicated is referred to as xerothalmia, which is due to the deficiency of vitamin A. Then if we take vitamin D as the next fat soluble vitamins, so vitamin D is chemically known as ergocalciferol. It is a steroid ring containing structure. So that is with three benzene ring like and one cyclopentene ring. So that four-membered ring. So along with the functional groups there. Such a steroid compound is vitamin D, ergocalciferol. So actually the synthesis of the cholecalciferol will be related here. So it is a complicated and additional information is not required. If you want to concentrate only the chemical name at least. So vitamin D chemically known as ergocalciferol. So exposure to sunlight will be the important source of this vitamin D. Directly will not get vitamin D if we go and stand in the sunlight. It's not like that. So the sunlight is going to cause a biochemical pathway to initiate in the living system. So where the chemical substance present in us called as cholecalciferol, so from that a biosynthetic pathway takes place to yield this vitamin D. And sunlight is a rich source of vitamin D synthesis to takes place within us. Hence exposure to sunlight may be acting as a source of vitamin D. So if we take the egg yolk, the yolk of the egg, so many will not eat the egg yolk, only the egg white they are going to eat. So egg white is a complete protein because you are going to get all the essential amino acids there. So there, egg yolk is also equally important because we are going to get the vitamin D needed for us. So by the egg yolk. So along with that, fish will be the rich source of vitamin D. If we see the deficiency disease of vitamin D, so it is rickets and osteomalacia are the two important ones. The deformities in the children, the bone deformities are due to vitamin D deficiency, and it is called as rickets. So you have heard about the deficiency of vitamin D, that is rickets. You have heard, many of you have heard about it. So this is one more new thing. So osteomalacia, you try to remember. So it is seen in adults. Osteomalacia is seen in adults. So where, so you are going to see that the density of the bone decreases in osteomalacia, the bone density decreases. As a result of that, so there will be soft bones. As a result of that, rubbing of those soft bones will cause us a severe painful condition. So in the joints especially. So that condition is due to deficiency of vitamin D again. Osteomalacia refers to the soft bones and joint pains in adults, seen in adults. So in children, the condition is rickets. The next one, vitamin E. So vitamin E is chemically known as tocopherol. Tocopherol is the chemical name of vitamin E. Vegetable oils are the rich source of vitamin E. Now, whatever the cooking oil we are going to use in our daily life, so we can observe on the label of those particular oil, vegetable oils. So it is mentioned AD, all they will mention. So, but the rich source of vitamin E is seen in these particular vegetable oils. So oil from wheat, germ oil, sunflower oil. So these are the rich sources of vitamin E. Now, what is the disease? So with the deficiency of vitamin E, we observed. So it is increased fragility of RBC. Fragility refers to movement. So increased movement of RBC causes the muscular weakness. So that muscular weakness is due to vitamin E deficiency, which is leading to the increased fragility of RBC, refers to the movement of red blood cells. And the last, vitamin K, there is no specific chemical name for this, but due to its important synthesis with a biochemical pathway, so not synthesis, a clotting mechanism called, so it is considered as anti-hemorrhagic factor. It is considered as anti-hemorrhagic factor. So what is anti-hemorrhagic factor? So as the name indicates, anti-against, hemorrhages refers to the blocks or blood clots. So vitamin K is acting as anti-hemorrhagic factor. That means it will dissolve the blood clots. So actually not dissolve. So it is going to be responsible for clotting of blood. So without vitamin K, so blood will not get clot. So the particular loss of blood will take place continuously and blood clot does not occur. So there is a huge mechanism for how to undergo a blood clot in us. So that particular clotting mechanism is initiated by this vitamin K. Without vitamin K, blood clotting in us will not take place. And without vitamin K, so it is not possible to make the blood to clot in us. So any wound, condition or cut of the respective skin surface, whatever the blood loss is there. So after some time, we are going to see that, so it is going to be stopped. So in the process, a huge mechanism is going to take place to prevent that loss of blood. So such a blood clotting mechanism requires this vitamin K. So based on that, you can remember. So any that is green leafy vegetables, if you take, so green leafy vegetables are the rich source of vitamin K, and the deficiency of this will be delayed blood clotting. Delayed refers to, so clotting of blood will not take immediately. So a prolonged duration of time will be observed for the blood to get clotted. So which may causes even the death of the individual. So hence, the vitamin K is responsible for the blood clot. So its deficiency leads to delayed blood clotting or increased blood clotting time. Now this is in simple. So the fat soluble vitamins. So try to concentrate at least one simple source so that you can easily recollect the vitamin. So which will be the source of it. And deficiency diseases are you need to practice it. So with this, so we'll go for the last one. So it is water soluble vitamins. We'll observe with the last one. It is water soluble vitamins. So it is vitamin B1, B2, B6, B12 and vitamin C. So I think all these vitamins, I think you have learned about it. So easily you can recollect the information. So we'll concentrate along with the chemical names. So vitamin B1, so chemically it is thiamine. It is not Y, THYMINE is nucleotide. That is a nitrogenous base seen in DNA. So here it is thiamine. It is THIAMINE. Thiamine, vitamin B1 is chemically known as thiamine. So most you can observe. So milk is the rich source of the vitamin B1, B2 and B6. So along with that, whatever the additional sources you can remember, you try to concentrate. So yeast, green leafy vegetables, cereals are the rich source of vitamin B1 along with milk. So the deficiency of vitamin B1 causes beriberi. The deficiency disease is beriberi. Beriberi refers to loss of appetite. Appetite means, so it is eating tendency. The tendency to eat will not be there. The person is not able to eat properly. As a result of that, there will be retarded growth. So retarded growth and loss of appetite is referred to as a condition called beriberi, so which is due to the deficiency of vitamin B1. Then vitamin B2 is chemically known as riboflavin. It is a flavonoid substance. So riboflavin, so which is present in milk, egg white, liver and kidney. So egg white is a rich source of B2. So egg yolk will be the rich source of B6 and vitamin D you can consider. So vitamin B2 is present in egg white. The deficiency of vitamin B2 will cause chelosis. Chelosis. I think many of you have come across with this symptom. So chelosis refers to there will be cracks seen under mouth or corners of the lips. So if you consider that whatever the corners of the mouth and lips or wounds happened in the mouth, so are due to the deficiency of vitamin B2. So if we take a vitamin B2 supplement, so that will be after few days it will be reduced. So chelosis will be considered due to this vitamin B2 deficiency. So chelosis is, so whatever the respective wounds happen in the mouth. So it is considered as fissurings at corners of mouth, like cracks what you are going to see in your lips and in the mouth. And you are going to observe digestive disorders. So as a result of that, so you are going to consider like burning sensations and all. So all those are due to the deficiency of vitamin B2. Whereas vitamin B6, if we take, so vitamin B6 chemically known as pyridoxine. So yeast is the best source of vitamin B1 and B6. So along with milk, egg yolk, cereals and grams are the B6 vitamin sources. So the deficiency of this B6 will cause convulsions. Again, many of you have come across with this symptom. So convulsions refers to uncontrolled shaking of body. So suddenly few muscles, especially the hand muscles or the muscles of the eyelid, so they will continuously contract and relax. As a result of that, so the symptom referred to as convulsion, it is actually due to the deficiency of vitamin B6. It is uncontrolled contraction and relaxation of muscles. Muscle cells so will undergo uncontrolled contraction and relaxations. So as a result, whatever the uncontrolled shaking of the body happens, so the condition is referred to as convulsions. Next, vitamin B12, a very important vitamin. So it is cyanocobalamin. It is cyanocobalamin. So this is the vitamin which contains cobalt in it. Cobalt present vitamin is a metal containing vitamin, vitamin B12. So meat, fish, egg, and curd are the rich source. So curd, egg, fish, and meat. So the deficiency of vitamin B12, you can recall the storage site what we considered, as it is involved in the synthesis of RBC. If vitamin B12 is not there, RBC will be seen with a deficient of hemoglobin. Without hemoglobin, RBC cells will be synthesized. That condition is anemic. The person will be anemic. So the condition is called as pernicious anemia. Anemia is seen as a result of vitamin B12 deficiency. And the last one, vitamin C. So vitamin C, chemically known as ascorbic acid. This is the only vitamin which is acidic in nature. So the only amino acid which is an acidic containing compound is vitamin C. Ascorbic acid chemical name will help in identifying that. So acidic vitamin is, so it is vitamin C. All the citrus fruits are the rich source of vitamin C. The amla and green leafy vegetables, so we can consider it as a main source of vitamin C. So the deficiency of the vitamin C causes scurvy. That is, whatever the bleeding condition happens in gums, so is due to this vitamin C deficiency. The bleeding gums, referred to as scurvy, is the main deficiency disease caused due to vitamin C. So these are the simple classification of vitamins with their sources and their deficiency diseases. So try to concentrate that. Few chemical names and all, it seems to be new for you. So try to practice it. So in the sources and all, try to remember at least one source to explain a vitamin, and concentrate the deficiency diseases of all. So you have the 5 water soluble vitamins and 4 fat soluble vitamins. Total 9 vitamins you are going to learn. So practice that clearly will be very, very important for your competitive exam, as well as 1 mark questions for your board exam preparations. So with this, we'll stop for today's class. So we'll be left with nucleic acids that we'll try to complete in our next class. Thank you.